Today's video, I'm going to show you guys how to change the front brake pads on a 2016 Ram 1500. Here's my 1500. Let me show you guys what tools we will need. Guys, so since the hoist is currently occupied by the Miata, we are going to be doing this on the ground. So to do this on the ground, we will need our jack stand for safety. We have our disc brake caliper tool set. This will help push the pistons in the brake caliper back into place. We've got a little flashlight here because we don't have enough lighting in the garage. We've got my big Ugga Dugga tool here to take the lug nuts off. I can't remember what the size of the stock lug nuts are on these trucks. I want to say they're 21 or 22, but don't hold me to that. I've got since I've got aftermarket wheels and tires on my truck, I've got those special spline sockets. So I've got this type of socket for mine. And then we will go ahead and, if you don't have power tools, you can go ahead and get yourself a ratchet, 3/8 ratchet with a 13mm socket, as well as a 17mm wrench. And we have a flathead screwdriver to help pry off the caliper once we get those two 13mm bolts off. Obviously, you will need your brake pads, and then some high heat or high pressure or high heat, high pressure grease to re-grease the sliders in the caliper. And then obviously get yourself some gloves so your hands don't get dirty and you don't bust your knuckles up. But yeah, let's go ahead and get this truck lifted up in the air and get that tire off. All right, guys, quick note on this tool right here. The disc brake caliper tool set. Now, this is a fancy one, a fancy set. You don't have to have this one. You can get, they have cheaper brands out there, or cheaper ones that are smaller, where you basically just need this mechanism. They have them at your local auto store, or I think I've seen them at Harbor Freight, anywhere from like $5 to under $20. I'll go ahead and put a link to a kit like this one if I can find one, if you are interested in purchasing one of these. However, you can rent these from your local auto store. But yeah, and then for the brake pads, I'll go ahead and put a link to the brake pads that I purchased for today's job. All right, and then tools, they should be pretty obvious. All right, guys, so the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and jack up the truck. All right, so I got the truck jacked up. The jack is doing minimal support. It's actually there as a backup. And I got the jack stand right here underneath the frame rail that is holding up the truck. This wheel or tire is free. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get the lug nuts off. Now, depending on if this wheel has been on here for a while, and if you live in the Rust Belt, you might need to give this a couple taps to get it off. In my case, these were recently just put on, so it should just come right off. All right, we'll go ahead and set this aside. All right, guys, so I got my little handy dandy light. Highly recommend this. It's a Milwaukee LED light. I'm gonna go ahead and hang that above. All right. And then we'll go ahead and grab our 13mm ratchet, or 13mm socket with our 17mm wrench. And then on the back right here, you should be able to break this off. Well, not break it off, but break it loose. So we'll go ahead, there we go. And then on the inside, there's a nut that's holding the bolt. So you're gonna go ahead and support the 17mm with the wrench, and then the 13mm, go ahead and zip it off. Go ahead, put the bolt aside. Same thing on the bottom. Take that bolt out. Now this should come off. So we're gonna go ahead and grab that flathead screwdriver and just kind of pry it out. I'm gonna pry out that caliper. There we go. And now we could set this on the lower control arm. Just make sure you don't have that caliper hanging loose. You don't want to damage the brake lines. So to get the pads out, we'll go ahead and pry them out as well. Just shimmy them back and forth and they should pop out. one on the front, one on the back. Now, since I'm reusing my rotor, try not to scratch up the rotor too much. There we go. That's out. Now these do have a little bit of life on them. However, I've got such a busy life these days, and I had some time today. Figured might as well just change them out. All right, so let's go ahead and grab my new pads. So these Bosch pads come with new hardware to mount the brake pads into this bracket right here, the caliper bracket, whatever it's called. So we'll go ahead and grab our pads. We'll go ahead and put the mounting bracket on it. So there's a spring. It's like a spring that goes, it'll be facing the outside, kind of like that. Put one on the top and one on the bottom. There we are. And then we'll go ahead and shimmy them into place. There we go. And then I don't know if you guys can see that, but that spring basically acts as it pulls the pad out whenever you're done compressing the brakes. Whenever you're done using the brakes, it basically brings the pad back out. All right, let's get back to the pad on the back. Same thing with the pad that goes in the rear. Make sure these are facing outside away from the rotor. All right, guys, now that the brake pads are in, we're going to go ahead and compress the pistons in the caliper. What I did was I grabbed an old brake pad, put that in place to kind of distribute the pushing of this compression tool. And then I've got the tool in place. We're going to go ahead and compress it. So we'll just go ahead and spin it. And it should push the pistons back in place. You are going to use some muscle here. All right. I'll go ahead and do it on this side as well, just to make sure that the other piston is compressed in all the way. There we go. Now that they're all compressed in, go ahead and remove our tool. Remove the old brake pad. Now, before I put the caliper back on, I do want to do one thing. All right, guys, now before we put the caliper on, one thing that you want to make a habit of whenever you're doing brakes is you want to lubricate or change the lubrication in the slider pins. So usually you'll have these pins and you'll see like a rubber boot around them and they're sliding back and forth freely. Hopefully that should be the case. I'm going to go ahead and pop them out, pull the rubber boot off, and then, so once the rubber boot's off, you want to go ahead and wipe the old grease off. Now to pull the rubber boot off, I just pulled it right off. And then we'll grab, so I do have grease. However, they did provide me with a little packet of grease and don't want anything to go to waste. So we'll go ahead and put a good amount of grease on here. There we go. And then just kind of lather it on. Alright. Put our rubber boot back on. So we'll just slide it on there and then pop it on the lip. And then when I go to put them in, I usually like to turn them kind of clockwise, just to get coverage of the grease all around. And then we'll pop the rubber boot on the other side here. There we go. Now we'll do the bottom, same thing. Pop that rubber boot off. Wipe off the old grease. Clockwise as I'm putting it on, and pop the rubber boot onto that side. All right, now let's go ahead and get the caliper on. So just line everything up. Grab your bolts, your 13mm bolts. You want to hand thread them first, just to make sure that you're getting them in the threads. All right, and then we'll go ahead and grab our 13mm socket and our 17mm wrench. Grab the 17mm nut and then just secure the bolt down. All right. All right, guys, we'll go ahead and put the wheel on now. Move everything out the way. You could use the support of your feet or your knees. Ooh, that's a heavy wheel and tire combo. It's just a 35. There we go. Now we're gonna grab our lug nuts, and you always want to hand thread them on first. All right, guys, now that they're hand threaded on, we're gonna go ahead and grab my Ugga Dugga tool. Now, if you have this bad boy right here, don't stay on it. I'm just doing this just to, what's it called? Just to thread them on real quick. Because this thing has 1,400 foot-pounds of torque, and it will break off your studs. Star pattern. Just get it nice and snug on there, and then we'll go ahead and hand torque it once it's on the ground. All right, so all that's left to do is to bring the truck down, get the jack and the jack stand out from underneath the truck. Then we will go ahead inside the truck and pump our brake a couple times before we turn it on. I don't think it matters if you turn it on or if you pump the brakes before the car is on. But I just like to do a couple pumps just to seat the pads in place. And that should do it. Just check your brake fluid level, see where that's at, and you should be good to go, guys. Thank you guys for watching. You can see I'm sweating. We're entering summer here in Michigan. It's getting kind of hot out. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate the support. As usual, feel free to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with the shenanigans here at Backyard Pit Stop. And I'll see you guys in the next video.